Good evening, all. This week, we want to show you something different. You're going to see one of the cruelest, the most heartless crimes I know of.
Hello, this is a raspberry Mivvi and a foot-long dog. My name's Warren Cummings, and in this podcast we take a look at films, old, new. In this case, we're going to be turning the clock back to a black and white classic, really. So I'm joined again by popular request. That's what it says on this piece of paper here that's been given to me. Popular request. Martin Holmes, the host of the radio show Vision on Sound, joins me to look at... Well, I'll leave him to introduce it.
I have no doubt that one of the best preventives of crime is the regular uniformed police officer on the beat.
Veterans like George Dixon, with 25 years service. Now Police Constable 693 attached to Paddington Green.
We have a piece round here with the dogs, drunks, fire houses, and sergeants.
That's the secret. Mixing your manures right.
I didn't remember he was coming straight for me. Maniac, that's what you are.
George Dixon shot. What? This time you really done it.
I didn't kill him. I was shooting at his legs.
Let's hope it was his legs. This is a murder case.
Murder! That's what you've got on him! Murder!
Shut up!
He shot that copper! He was the one! He killed him! All right, he killed him!
Yes, I'm back! I'm back! Nerf to Pap, being shot by Clint Eastwood and drunk under the table by Richard Burton, where eagles dare.
I don't know. From Clint.
It's Martin Holmes. Is he?
Oh, yes. Yes, that was such a popular episode. It's taken me 2 years to come back. Absolutely.
And being the homicidal maniac that he is, he's
People
looking
loved
at
it
another
very
death on
much.
screen.
I am, yeah, I'm afraid so. But all the films I really like involve somebody dying horribly, isn't it? Great. And yeah, I'm really not a big fan. I'm not a big fan of horror movies where people die really horribly. But no, I thought today we would. I would regale you with the delights of 1949's The Blue Lamp.
Please do. So, yes, you've heard it here, folks. We're going back to 1949, and the screen's turned black and white and the house lights have gone down. Away you go.
I know it's a film that you really, really like. And it's a police film, isn't it? Made in 1949, in the days when people talked in very posh voices. And,
From M2GW.
And it basically tells the story of two tearaways who are doing a number of blags alongside a runaway girl, and their interactions with the local Nick at Paddington Green, not Dock Green, Paddington Green, where one Jack Warner, playing PC George Dixon, bites the dust halfway through the film.
He does. Heroically, would you say, or just matter-of-factly?
It's very interesting, actually, because I rewatched it for this, and that scene is so iconic, isn't it? That scene in the foyer of the Colosseum?
The Colosseum Cinema. Did you notice what the film was? Did you notice what the film was in the background?
I did, yes. It was something.
Granny, get your gun.
Get your gun.
Granny,
get your gun.
Granny, get your gun. Yes.
Is that a real film?
No.
No, right. Is it actually? It was actually a spoof film.
I didn't remember he was coming straight for me. Maniac, that's what you are.
I have taken to when you see quite a lot of times in police dramas, especially set around London, they tend to use Piccadilly Circus, don't they, with all the neon.
Yeah, they love the neon lights.
And Leicester Square and all that. And you can actually see, if you look very closely at the background of Robert Beatty or whoever, you can see which films were playing when they were shooting.
Yeah, you do that as well. I always do that. I always go there. There was one film that they were showing Quatermass 2 in the background. I can't remember. But whenever they do that shot, they have the Trocadero in the background. And I'm always squinted to have a look at the film. Because I think one of the famous films, I can't remember what was on, when Gorgo goes through, I know we're going off from George Dixon to Gorgo here, where Gorgo traipses on through, he goes past...
It's nice that we plan these things.
It's one of these, I'm glad I'm not the only person that does this, because this is film trivia, and I'm wondering, well, this is going to tell me what year it was made, and what's on. I mean, the only thing that disappoints me is when I watch American Werewolf in London, because by that time the cinema's gone, and all you've got is that seedy little porn cinema there, isn't it? That they were showing dodgy porn films on. Anyway, from porn films to George Dixon.
I don't think it's that big a leap. That sounds like a Kirsty MacColl song, doesn't it? From a porn film in Soho to a film starring George Dixon, it's not that far.
Edward Alexander Wainwright. You're charged with being guilty whilst drunk of disorderly behaviour at Spring Street, Paddington at 6:40 p.m. on the 2nd of July 1949, contrary to the Licensing Act of 1872, Section 12.
Rhubarb.
Yeah, George Dixon bites the dust in a. Well, I think it's a vignette. No, it's a documentary, isn't it? It's a documentary.
It's a documentary film style film. Yes.
It's actually in the great tradition of black and white documentary style movies. It's a fabulous. It's 80 minutes. It's a really, really tight piece of cinema. It doesn't outstay its welcome. The first half basically deals with introducing all the police officers and the storyline that will lead to the demise of one of them, which is the interactions of all the little bits of community, little bits of how the police interact with the ordinary. Well, let's not all remember them. They are not necessarily the higher echelons of society.
The unscrupulous members of the darker citadels of London,
and snotty-nosed urchins, and
who want a jam bun every time they go to the station,
and terribly posh people with terribly posh mistresses.
Maisie is big.
It is fascinating. The shall we say, the language of the streets, as per the cinema of 1949, is a whole thesis that needs to be written all on its own. Really.
Now come on, son, move on. You ought to know better than that.
Buy a better and see the world.
Ripe cherries, all ripe.
It said, "Where'd you get the car?" Up the dilly. And Piccadilly, if anyone's interested in what that means, if you're not from London.
Nothing to do with Dora Bryan, then.
Nothing with Dora Bryan. Maisie. There are certain people in this film that will always play the same role for the rest of their career. Dora Bryan epitomises that. Ultimately, she's just wonderful. He said, "You pipe down, or he showed me a caution. I'll give you some of this."
Well, of course, she does the quite famous identity parade scene as well, doesn't she? Where she picks the wrong man.
Yes.
Who looks mortified. What, me? How dare I just was helping you out? I was on the bloody street trying to go to my job, and you said, "Oh, we need to put up some people for an identity parade. Will you join us, sir? You've got a hat."
You look like Edward Brayshaw.
You look like a man in a hat. It was Edward Brayshaw, wasn't it?
It was Edward Brayshaw, yes.
I mean, again, a surprising spot amongst a cast of, icons, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I know I do want to talk to you about sort of some other 50s icons in another episode at some point, but certainly Jack Warner, Jimmy Hanley, Dirk Bogarde, Robert Fleming, Bernard Lee, for God's sake.
Yes,
it's quite the Tessie O'Shea.
Tessie
O'Shea in it.
You can't go wrong with Tessie O'Shea.
Two-ton Tessie halfway through the film.
See, that was the first time I'd ever been introduced to Tessie O'Shea, was this film, and it was great. I went and spoke to my great aunt about Tessie O'Shea after that.
do you think there was an intermission? Do you think actually, when Dirk and oh god, what's his name?
Spud.
Dirk and Spud. Go off to the bar. That's what people did in the cinema.
You wanted Dirk or Spud for murder of police officer.
So actually, it's a musical interlude with Tessie O'Shea, and you go to the bar and you go back. Oh, is the film still on? Right. Okay.
She's out the back now having her pie.
Two-time Tessie from Tennessee, all 6 fellas upon company. When she does, all the fun begins. They play tennis on a double chin. Caused a rise in the price of meat. It's been 10 years since she saw her feet. Bannister had given up his gym. He ran around her once just to keep in trim. They call her Two-Time Tessie. Two-Time Tessie from Nashville, Tennessee. Yes, they call her.
Because actually, this is 2 40-minute pieces, really. There's the
it is, yeah.
Up until the shooting, and then the bit after the shooting, which is basically a 40-minute manhunt, which I still believe is fresh as a daisy and is still a fabulous piece of cinema. This is basically when Dirk Bogarde goes from the, shall we say, teenage tearaway who's quite smoothly dressed and a bit of a one for the ladies, to the psycho killer.
The ladies?
Yes. To the psycho killer, and the scruffy Herbert in the flat, and then he tries to murder his girlfriend at one point. Which is,
I love the sound of fear where he goes to shoot Dixon, because he says Dixon's cool, calm, and he's not expecting this guy to shoot him. He thinks it's all show, and the panic in his voice is, "This thing works.
This thing works.
This thing works," and it's like as if that's going to get him out of everything.
It's also interesting,
as if he's a schoolboy that's been caught again, hasn't he?
Yes, but it's also interesting that he has his mask on. It doesn't stop him breathing in any way, shape, or form. Although he goes off his nose over the top of it, so he's obviously an idiot. But well, let's face it. What are you going to do? What sort of disguise where you don't disguise most of your face?
Yes. And he shoots him, and his mate says, "I shot at his legs." Well, if his legs are up round his waist, you're all right.
He's very tall, that Dixon. He's a former ballerina, his legs right away up to his armpits.
Blooming broad as well, wasn't he? He wasn't a slim man, was old Jack, was he?
Yes, it's a very staid performance as he approaches him. The last shot you see of him before they cut back to him, and he's sort of leaning over and falls down. But that shot where he's on the final approach, as it were, is a very. I'm amazed by this, because I genuinely, I was watching it earlier, and I'm absolutely amazed. There are some cracking performances in it. The acting, Dirk Bogarde is very good in it. There's the sweaty, scared Herbert.
And you wouldn't think, would you think it's his first film? Because no. I wouldn't have thought it was his first film.
It's the confidence on screen is immaculate, but also the Gladys Henson scene after George dies. Spoiler alert! I apologise again, but that scene where Jimmy Hanley has to tell her that George has. It's bad news, Ma, or whatever he says to her.
Yeah,
because he's become a kind of adopted son to them. In the
he doesn't even get the words out, does he? Because William Mervyn has to take over and say his heart stopped all of a sudden, and we couldn't. I find that a heartbreaking scene even now. Yeah.
It's still, I do shed a manly tear when that comes on, and I'm amazed the power of a piece of acting in a film that's 70 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Is if not more.
You're early. I'm just off to St Mary's. I want these to be the first thing he sets eyes on when he does come round. Oh, Mr. Hammond, he's dead.
It was all of a sudden, Mrs. Dixon. His heart. They had no time to get through to you.
No, sir.
There couldn't have been any pain, the doctor said.
I'd better put these in water.
You'll get him, Ma. Whoever did it, we'll get him.
I expect you will.
Yeah, but it's the sheer power of the acting in that scene to me is amazing. And again, there are other moments in the film that just get you in the same way. And there's a moment where I think Bernard Lee, when he gets told that George hasn't made it, it's actually that moment when his voice changes. It's astonishing. It's astonishing vocal acting of a kind probably we don't see anymore on screen, because it's pitch perfect. And
he's playing from the phone call, so he's playing from a prop, isn't he?
Oh yes, sir. Oh, I see. Yes, of course, sir. This is a murder case.
Yeah. He's got no one to react against speaking to him on that phone, so he has to create it in his head. And it's, as you say, it's the pitch, it's the tone, it's pure professionalism. It's Bernard Lee, isn't it? For goodness sake.
But it's a film of incredible small moments amongst incredible small moments. You know, there are little tiny bits of it where you just see the kids playing in the ruins. You know, the bombed out buildings.
Yeah, there's the interesting thing is, and it's only mentioned once, that you know what is going to happen to Riley and Spud, because the little girl sums it up, because it's the innocence of the child saying,
"Oh yeah,
have you got enough to hang him now?"
Good girl, Queenie. All right, Robert, you better get to work. Ring up Thames Division, have them drag the canal. Go through the whole neighbourhood. It's a long shot, but something else might turn up. Right.
Will you be able to hang him now?
We'll see, Queenie. We'll see.
And that's the only time it's really mentioned.
Yeah.
Any other time, we know where it's heading, we know where the story's heading to, but it's never mentioned by anybody else except for the innocence of this child going, "You're going to hang him now."
And it shows how matter of fact that was as well, doesn't it? You know, the matter of factness of capital punishment, which you either all for or against, or whatever. And that's not a debate we're going to have here tonight. But the matter of fact nature of that as being part of everyday life is astonishing, really. I mean, in some ways, as Lost Worlds, as showing you how a world has changed. I mean, I love the film because it photographs that lost London so beautifully.
Yes.
It takes you back to an age and an era, and in fact the whole thing really is an escalation of that idea of a world that we no longer can imagine. The poverty, the lack of stuff to do of an evening other than go and see Tessie O'Shea or some grotty film.
Granny, get your gun.
The
most exciting thing
or turn
is
over a
Bobby
jeweller's
being
shop.
shot.
The fact that people would have these strange and peculiar mistresses, and the police would say, "I won't tell your wife."
Yeah, we can be discreet in these fashions, for goodness sake.
And of course, the London Barrow people, they would get
cherries,
told to move along.
Cherries.
Yeah, move along. And
do you remember the guy when they see Dirk Bogarde's girlfriend, who's been reported missing? They're standing by the guy who's selling the wind-up toys.
Oh, yes.
The really tatty-looking, tired wind-up toys off of that wooden tray.
Yeah.
I almost expected, and I didn't see one, I was looking for a match vendor, because that's what I'm associating for that era. But the poverty, the austerity is just... It's more blatant than I've noticed it before in that film, because as we've discussed before, we always view something different. We take something different away from this film.
Yes. I mean, I've seen it a number of times, and every time I see it, I pick up on something else in it, and it's quite, I always feel like I could watch this film again now, having watched it this morning. I love it so much because it feels fresh and modern. Like I say, I know there are people who find the twee representation of the police force, or the matiness, or everybody's chums, or the idea of the criminal fraternity being all really, handing glove to the police and all
honor
this kind of thing.
Thieves.
Honor amongst thieves, and all that kind of stuff. I know it bothers people, but actually, in terms of purely 80 minutes of entertainment as a piece of movie,
it's paced. There is always pace to it. It doesn't lose its pace.
Can they let you in? Going straight, Governor. You know that, Mr. Lovell? Sure. Mike, do those boys a bit of good. I'm looking for Tom Riley. What about it? He shot that copper.
I see.
Something that I've been thinking about is that once you get to the second half of the film, I mean, Dirk Bogarde is doomed. We see him as this scruffy Herbert, and then he tarts himself up and he goes to the police station, and we have the ID parade and everything like that. And
what a fedora he is wearing, I must say.
Yes. Well, I mean, basically the hats of the 40s and 50s. I mean,
fantastic.
Hats. I mean, when you think about the early James Bond films where he wears a hat and you think it looks so anachronistic now, you know. But that was just what people did, you know. But so you get to that point in the film where he smarts himself up and he goes and he thinks he's got away with it, even though he's obviously been very poor in his interview, as it were. Yeah. When he actually sort of...
it's that arrogant confidence.
He thinks he can basically talk his way out of it. And then he goes back and, like I say, he has this... the girl, she's run away again. She's run away to Spud's flat. And then he basically tries to murder her, and that's in the end when the screams... and that brings the police coming. But he manages to escape with Spud.
Oh, give me some money, Tom. I'm going away. I'm scared.
You're dangerous.
Oh, no! Tom, please.
Get under arrest. You've got nothing on me.
Murder! That's what you've got on him! Murder!
Shut up!
He shot that copper. He was the one. He killed him. Tom, right, he killed him.
And from then on, it's an absolute roller coaster to the end of the film. And it's massive, massive car chase, which, again, I think sometimes people don't really quite realise quite how well filmed that car chase is. I mean, considering, you know, it's 1949 and people have seen, like, say, films like Bullet or Ronin or whatever, which have got these spectacular French Connection. You've got but actually... for 1949, and even, to be honest, for 20 years later, it's an impressive car chase.
And the thing is, you say to people, you've got to explain, there were the street, they go, but the streets are empty. Yeah, there were no cars then.
Yeah. I funnily enough, a few weeks ago, I went back to the house I on the street I grew up in, and I was amazed, just from the street, I hadn't been there for 30 years, and how many cars were parked left and right along the entire road. And when I was a kid, it just, maybe one house in four had a car, It's amazing how much more sort of crammed in we are. But those streets, they are vast and open and beautifully shot. I mean, the cinematography on this film is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that crisp black and white. I mean, I've said before, I don't think... I mean, there were colour films being made in Britain in that era, but actually, I don't think this film would have worked as well.
It's a very, very, very much reflects the style, the in-house style of Ealing Films.
Yes.
And the way they're lighting is perfect. And as you say, it is that black and white. It's the shadows. It's... Again, with the car chase, it's where the police car stops, and in the background there's the hoardings are blowing in the wind. It's so well framed.
It's evocative, isn't it? It's evocative of something amazing, and yet something which was quite... I mean, there's so much post-war austerity, so much post-war poverty, so many buildings that are falling down, so much homelessness. I mean, part of the plot in the early part of the film is that the Jimmy Hanley's character can't find a decent digs.
Yeah.
The housing shortage, and the housing shortage has led to a lot of the the interactions with the families, big families with small places to live, and a lot of the crime that's happening. The fact that the Bobby's on the beat in the first half, I mean, they all have their little ways of getting through it, but the lifestyle they're showing, there's a policeman has to shine a torch on a couple and tell them to move along. You think, you can't imagine that now.
You get a mouthful of abuse.
Well, it's just but it was that sense of they were the thin blue line. They were law and order. They were what was keeping society glued together.
Did you like the bit where they were washing down the streets at night as well?
Yeah, all these images
great,
are just not things that you can even imagine now. You know, again, some of the trucks, they just look like, how could that possibly, you know...
Does that go round a corner, or is it just built to go straight?
I mean, there's a sort of wonderfulness about a world that you know existed and know had to function before you were born. And yet somehow you can't quite imagine it, and it gives you a little insight into the world of your parents or your grandparents. That this is part of what watching these old films does. But to dismiss them as just being a bit rubbish or a bit hokey is, there's a lot of great acting, there's a lot of great storytelling, and you get to the point at the end of the big car chase, and basically Spud crashes the car, because that's generally, even if you watch police camera action now, that's what happens. You know, when you're being chased by half a dozen police cars, you're going to make a mistake and hit a wall.
Ask 5F his location. Hello 5F. Hello 5F. Frederick from M2GW. Give your location. M2GW, over.
Hello, M2GW from 5F. I'm proceeding south down Scrubs Lane. Try to intercept at Latimer Road.
I'll get him.
Now, I'm not convinced that Spud is dead, but the most...
No, he's not. He's knocked unconscious, apparently.
Yeah.
The storyline was always to be that he's knocked unconscious.
Right, okay. It's just I know a couple of... I know a couple of synopses do say that he's killed in the accident. I mean, we don't ever see Spud again. So but we've got to assume...
There's that wonderful shot, isn't it, across the wasteland, as he pursues
that was what I was
going
to say. And so Dirk Bogarde runs for it towards White City. You see White City in the background, but they have to cross this railway.
Yes.
Now, I'm not 100% convinced that Jimmy Hanley knew that train was coming.
I can tell you a story about that very briefly.
Okay.
Basically, they were going, right, okay, we're going to have the shot, and they do the bit of him going across the backyard, the high-up shot, the crane shot, and then running down the embankment. And they stopped, and he said, why are you stopping? Well, it's the tube line. Oh, don't worry about that. They set the camera up. He said, what we want you to do is don't stand on any rails, but go across the line. You went... You what? So the trains? No, just... And this was... Dirk Bogarde said this. He was saying that when they filmed it, they said he just thought this is how they made films, because it was his first big
You assume it's Sunday morning, I suppose, or something.
Yeah, it would have been early hours of the early in the morning. I have to say that Jimmy Hanley does look a little surprised in that tube train. I expect the driver was blooming surprised as well, because there weren't supposed to be anyone on the line. They literally just pitched the camera up, lit it, go.
Well, you see, the other thing that gets me about that is when you see them scrambling around under the wires and cables and everything like that, and you think... You know, I know we used to get public information films telling us not to play on railway lines, but you actually think, crikey, now you know why. I mean,
you're going to get electrocute your main stars.
There's no protection at all. And then you see them clambering over the railway lines, and then there's a wonderful jump cut. I don't know whether it is, you know, that geographically works, but then sort of Dirk Bogarde leaps over the wall. So Tom Riley leaps over the wall, and suddenly we're in
White City
dog races, the White City stadium. And of course, as we discussed in other places, suddenly Dirk Bogarde is the rabbit being chased by the hounds, which of course is the entire purpose of the racetrack. But of course, this is where you get this wonderful sequence where the tic-tac-toe guys, the criminals, all sort of band together to get this young hooligan out of their hair, really. And
yeah, because he's drawing too much attention to them, isn't he? Really, and he's a liability. And this is put in the first forward to the film, isn't it? Where he said he is a liability. He's an uncontrollable team. He has no direction.
And of course, this is the criminal who we've already met in the first part of the film, who refused,
the professional criminal.
Professional criminal, who's refused to back their little venture, which of course was the thing that led to Dixon. I tell you, the other scene that suddenly sticks in my head is the woman who tells him that shouldn't you one of your men's just been murdered, and
yes,
be out catching
the
real criminals.
Driver. Yes, here you are harassing innocent motorists.
And I thought, is that not something we still hear today? It's a complete
but that actually gives it a touch of realism, doesn't it? Because it's saying to you that is the arrogance you get from people.
I watching that again this morning. I'm sat there thinking Jimmy Hanley. I'd just turn around and say, "Look, he was a mate of mine, and you can just." Off. But of course you couldn't do that, because that would be unprofessional behaviour, and that would be
absolutely.
But anyway, basically trying to beat down the doors, because it's Operation Turnstile.
This is the thing. It's so British. We'll keep him. How are you going to stop him from escaping? We'll close the door.
Jim. Shadow, what brings you here? The man who shot our PC has been following you. Security officer?
Operation Turnstile.
He's in the stadium. He's yours.
I mean, well, the thing about this is you see all the people piling into the stadium. I mean, I'm not much of a one for sports events, but I imagine that it's presumably you don't get stragglers, because they're there for the race.
Yeah.
So actually, once everybody, I was kind of thinking they're shutting all these gates and everything. Won't they have people still wanting to get in?
Everyone available? Come on, all of you. They've only just come in.
Oh, what is it this time?
They're onto the bastard that shot George Dixon.
Did you notice the rain as well?
Yes, it's suddenly very wet, isn't it?
Yeah, you notice the rain, and that helps because people come into the light. They glisten when they're coming into surround.
But the streets in the car chase are bone dry. This is a bright summer Sunday afternoon. It's again that really helps with the photography, but then to switch to that sort of again, you could argue it's to do with the Tom Riley's guilt thing manifested on film. There's a lot of stuff about how you subliminally sort of transmit this stuff. Like I say, the rabbit being chased by the dogs and him being the wide-eyed sort of terrified kid.
Well, it's the lights going down, isn't it? And there's tunnel vision to escape. There's only one way I can go, and it's the same way as the rabbit.
And we do know that he gets carted off, and he will have basically paid the ultimate price for this, and presumably Spud will as well. I mean, we assume.
What do you think to his girlfriend? Do you think she would as well?
Well, it's tricky, that one, isn't it?
Because she aids and abets, doesn't she, to a certain extent?
Well, she does, but she certainly does in terms of the cinema robbery, but also she is the main witness for the prosecution in terms of dobbing him in.
So you reckon she'll go back and bring up that baby's
She'll do
wind?
a deal, mate. She'll do a deal.
How many kids did she have in that family?
I don't know.
Shut up and bring up that baby's
wind.
Do
we think that Tom Riley knocked her up beforehand? That's the question. Would you think any of that sort of stuff was going on, or was she a bit too innocent?
Well, he was a bit. In one point where he's touching for her heart, he's a bit handsy, isn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's copping what will be securely known as copping a feel there. It was a bit.
It's supposed to felling a copper, which is
yeah.
This is why we get the big bucks, you know.
But interesting with this, there's no music. There's no theme music. There's no theme music, is there?
Well, again, it's that ringing of the police bells. I mean, actually, you sort of imagine that 20 years later it would have been really, really annoying because it would have been the siren.
I like the bell. The bell goes at a nice pitch.
Yeah.
It goes at a nice pitch. And
have you ever sort of suggested it in a meeting? Could we bring back the old bell?
The bell. When I first joined,
and the number plate lettering on the front of the car.
Oh, yes. When I first joined, the radio sets had Whale, Hail, and Bell.
And Radio Luxembourg.
Radio Luxembourg for the light programme. Yeah. But no, I like the idea.
From over the water.
This
This is Radio Luxembourg, the great two-away, the ring-a-ding swinging station of the stars.
And there's the badly dubbed control room scene, isn't there? Which is actually the control room of Scotland Yard. Right. You can actually see out the windows and see the Thames area out. They actually were the police lent them their cars. They are all real police cars, and they did use.
So it was made with the cooperation of, really, wasn't it?
Yes, because
like I say, the documentary style, you do get the voiceovers, you do get the captions and everything.
Yeah,
like that, so
they wanted to use it as a recruitment tool.
Right.
As well, because there was a huge shortage. Yes, it did work. It worked really well. They went to Ealing Films and said, "We'd like you to do a film," and they said, "As it happens, As it happens, we do happen to have this film in the mix. It's called The Blue Lamp."
Yeah.
They read through it and they went, even though the main character shot dead halfway through, they wanted it.
That'll be good for recruitment. Yeah, there's a 50% chance you'll survive your day.
You won't make it to retirement.
So don't bother having a pension. Just grow begonias. Yes,
grow begonias.
But you see, that again, the interesting thing, I think that the film is. I mean, there is a kind of pre-credits. In the sense that there is a big car chase and somebody's killed, which is to demonstrate the crime wave that's in progress. But actually, from that, you get Dixon sort of showing somebody the way to the nearest railway station.
Excuse me, officer. Can you direct me to Paddington station? Yes, sir. Straight across the green, turn left over the iron bridge, and you're there. Thank you very much.
And of course, that same incident is repeated by Jimmy Hanley in the closing moments of the film.
Yes.
And the pan up to the police lamp and the blue lamp of the
and the barrel organ playing in the background.
Yes. Yes, and of course that is its ambient sound, isn't it? I mean, we do get musical interludes in this film because we do get George singing his All Correct song, which has been introduced as one of the things he writes.
I shall be done. You know I'm going to be done.
I write little verses.
I
write little verses.
George, before you go, let these Bow Street boys hear that song of yours.
All correct. Now listen to this, Daff. Now you're on the point and you swivel your eyes onto a passing bride. A bus, a tram and two bicycles with a horse and cart collide. An obelisk is overturned, the supercar is wrecked. But you pick him up and you dust him down and you tell him all correct. Oh, you pick him up and you dust him down, you tell him all correct. Now water main has started to flood, the gasworks are on fire. The nick is like a bath of blood, they massacred the choir.
Come along, back on your beats, late turn. Dixon, you're what stopped?
On my way, Sarge.
And we also get a musical interlude with Tessie O'Shea, and quite right too. And but yes, in terms of basically a great piece of cinema. George Dixon obviously went on to become a fabulous television character for 21 years after that, after a 5-year gap. He was allowed to rest in peace for 5 years. That 5 years he was supposed to be putting in as his extended his career.
He was, yes.
Oh, yeah, he would just lay in for 5 years.
We call it gardening leave.
So he had 5 years gardening leave, being dead for the 5 years, for the duration, and then came back on TV.
Say it how it is, why don't you? Well, yeah. Did you know the film won a BAFTA?
I should hope it did.
Yes. Yeah, in 1951 it won a BAFTA for the best British film.
About is because I don't know what policy would have been, but presumably after they buried George, did his wife get kicked out of that police house she was living in?
She would have done, yes.
Crikey. Or would Jimmy Hanley been allowed to keep her on as a lodger?
No, because he's not married. It would have only gone to married officers.
Wow.
That's always been the policy. You could only have a police. They did police houses up until, they were still doing digs in the mid to late 90s. Right. And they finished about 98, 99. If it was digs, as in you got a room in what they called a section house, then that single persons, but a few forces still had houses, and they were only for married couples. So yeah, she'd have been out on her ear, regardless of whether her husband had been gunned down.
I'm even more upset for her now.
Yeah. Well, she'd have been selling her begonias on the corner, wouldn't she?
Would it have been, within a week, within a month?
It would have been, if you think about it, I suppose it would have been...
With this housing shortage that there was.
Yeah, housing shortage, she'd have been out on her ear. Because
and she didn't even have any relatives to go and stay with, Craig.
No, they didn't, no. Well, she could go and stay with, what's his name's relative down in Kent, who were shoveling horse manure or cattle manure.
She'd have probably set her eye at that Welsh copper,
Right, Bart's all right, of course, very nice indeed. But no mountains. I miss the mountains, man. Hey, who's pinched my baked beans?
Send for a copper, Taft's been robbed.
Chap can't leave a thing lying around for 2 minutes in this place without somebody knocking it off.
Here they are, Taft.
Oh, sorry, Lucy.
And you haven't paid for them yet.
But yes, she'd have kept an eye. I reckon she'd have kept her options open. She's got a few years left in her.
I still say, is it Meredith
Edwards?
Meredith Edwards. I still say he has a look of Daniel Craig. I'm sure he might have been around.
He has a look of a Welsh Daniel Craig.
I'm beginning to wonder about, twinkle in the eye and all that, and a bit of the old Welsh singing,
Oh,
bit
that's
of the old
lovely.
charm.
Oh, yes, there's a welcome in the hillsides.
Because it's astonishing. I kept thinking that's Daniel Craig, but it's 50 years too early.
Craig.
No, I thought the film's too short for a Daniel Craig film.
Well, I really don't know what to say to that. Meredith Edwards is James Bond is.
Before they even wrote the books.
Here, who's had my baby?
Maybe that's who Fleming based him on. Well, there you think.
Yeah, penchants for the ladies, good eating, singing voice. Yeah,
Celtic blood,
Yes.
Excellent.
So, The Blue Lamp.
Oh, I love it. I think it's a great film. It's one of those films that, when you've got nothing much, you can't be bothered. You think, I'll watch a film this afternoon. It's one of those ones I'm drawn to. There are about 3 or 4. There's that one. There's The Noel Coward In Which We Serve, which I'm drawn to. There's Hell Drivers, which I'm drawn to. And there's this sort of this era of great British movies. Cruel Sea as well is another one that sometimes gets drawn off the shelf. But there's this era of really good, really solid, black and white, gritty British movies. I mean, I know In Which We Serve is actually during the war, but this post-war era of phenomenal filmmaking that somehow wasn't trying to be huge, but it was trying to be relevant. It was trying to be socially relevant to a certain extent.
Well, a lot of the Ealing colonies, comedies were very socially relevant as well, weren't they?
Yeah, but it's that. I mean, probably about a decade, because basically, come the 60s, it all sort of falls apart, really, to a certain extent. But in the 50s, the British film industry was just churning out these masterpieces, which are still very watchable.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a great film. If you've not seen The Blue Lamp, and
why not? Why have you not seen The Blue Lamp?
And you're going to open it with your eyes wide open and going to it and not sort of going with any sort of prejudices. It's actually just a great piece of cinema.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Martin. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you again for your second appearance.
Well, somebody had to have me back. He put the cuffs on me, mate. He put the cuffs on me and dragged me down and he said, "You got to do me another show. You got to do me another one."
Shoot, Bob.
I just want to move me. I want to move me barrow 5 feet along, but no.
Martin's available every Sunday at 7:00. What are you available on?
I'm available on my weekly radio show on Fab Radio International, which is it's called Vision on Sound, which is all about we talk all basically all aspects of mad things about kind of old and archive telly or whatever else the mood takes. And sometimes I actually even finish a sentence. Yes. So yeah.
Anything to fill 60 minutes. You can follow him on his Twitter feed. Goodness me, whose teeth have I worried?
We'll talk to anybody. I will talk to literally anybody. No, that's not fair.
Well, in the words of George Dixon, At the end of the blue lamp. Oh! No, at the end of.
Evening all. What? What you say, George? Evening all. Evening all.
And on that positive note, thank you.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Bye-bye now. Many thanks again there for Martin to contributing to one of our favourite films there, The Blue Lamp. It's directed by excellent Ealing director Basil Dearden. Screenplays by T.B. Clarke with the original treatment by Jan Reid and Ted Willis. Ted Willis, of course, will go on to produce multiple scripts for the BBC television serial. You've been listening to A Raspberry Mivvi and a Foot-Long Dog. My name is Warren Cummings. Thank you for joining me. Come and join me again next time. Thank you very much again, and do pass the word. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cue the rhubarb.